about this lot next door to yours?
No, that doesn't belong to him. It goes from right alongside that building, clear out the street, takes in this back lot here. And that lot over there belongs to the people that own the stars.
Your name's Jimmy?
He's Billy.
No, Billy. Somebody else is Jimmy.
This is Jimmy.
This is Jimmy. Grab this microphone for me. I'm going to make you an
He's
introduction.
gonna sit out here a little bit, but he needs you to sit there so he
Just what I want you to do is just point it at their mouths. And no. Out of the shot. That's right, right there. And speak to me a little bit so I can hear.
1, 2, 3, 4, testing.
I got
1,
coffee
2, 3, 4, testing. Oh, good. My
Charming little boys.
God, did we get you out of bed?
Hey,
Right.
hey, you said,
Did
did you say 10:30 though?
Yeah, 10:30.
Okay, so you're early.
Early.
Okay, I just.
They're earlier than I am. I'm
Yeah.
usually early.
Well, you know.
We were
these
so
boys,
anxious.
These boys didn't get where they get by sleeping in.
Are you the guy that owns this place?
Yeah.
Sometimes,
Yeah, he's the
local rabble rob.
He's the, yeah.
Yes.
We're like the village idiots.
If you want some dialogue, you need to get
Yeah, that guy can give you dialogue.
Do you want to do some of this? I mean, please? Please?
These guys, you got everything you need right here. This is where I learned everything I know.
Oh, you're in trouble. You're in big trouble, Mike.
I don't think so, Ray. Besides that, I got Jimmy's daughter now, so.
I think we got it.
You get it?
You know what you can also do? Go in there and talk that Mulroney guy into giving us something to drink.
Coffee?
Some just like
Yeah.
we're gonna be talking.
Yeah, he's gonna run, he's got him some coffee coming.
Oh,
Yeah.
I wasn't listening. I was doing that. Hey, we're happening. I'm ready. I'm the mic stand.
Oh, good morning, Lee. How you doing this morning?
Good.
You want to
Good
welcome
morning,
you to
Lee.
Moab?
Thanks.
Just where, how do you want to begin this and start it?
I don't know. I guess I want to know who you are. So,
All right.
so and I've heard rumors.
You want to clarify who? Yeah, well, my name's Ray Tibits, and I've lived here all my life in Moab. I put a hitch in the Army after high school, or in the Air Force. Come back and worked for the sheriff's office. Got into the ranching business to some degree. From then I went into the store business, in the store business for about 30 years. I've been selling real estate and have had a license to sell real estate for about 25 years now. That's in conjunction with the store business and so forth. So, know about all the rocks, and we were probably here when they first started laying these rocks. But we know with our background, both Jim and myself, our parents were raised here in this area, and we become, well acquainted with the area. So we probably know it as well as anybody here.
Okay, let's stop for a minute. I've got just things here. So I can get next to this guy. I'm trying to see the other side of it.
My turn, or?
I think that's good. Let me find. Let me take that just to make sure it's not in the shot. Whoop, there it is. You both were, the reason that I got you guys together is because you were both involved, Sagebrush Rebellion, and all the land issues around here. And boy, I heard a lot of stuff about, Moab is the center of land issues in this country. So
The hotbed.
it's the hotbed.
The hotbed.
It really is. And so I'd like to hear some.
You want Jim to introduce himself
Yes,
a little bit first?
I forgot Jim.
Okay, my name is Jimmy Walker. I've lived here all my life, born and raised here. I'm 67 years old, so I've seen it all happen. And I've been in the service station business for some 20 years, and then I've been a self-taught geologist, so I spent a lot of time in the hills, and I've done a lot of uranium prospecting and mining and promotion. And then I got into politics because of my interest in trying to save Grand County for a better future. And so I've seen all the changes and all the different philosophical changes that's still going on today. So whatever you want to hear, we know it.
We got the coffee coming.
You're a good man, Michael.
Somebody's got to be ready,
I know.
you know?
When it comes down to this,
And I hate it when it's my turn.
understanding what this here whole play and thing's about, you have to understand from way back how things were and they were treated. And I've said this different times before that up to the passage of Flipman in 1976, the lands was treated as public lands. Since then, they've become federal lands. And the whole philosophy on those lands, and from the federal government's point of view, has changed. Up to that time, the federal government held the lands in trust at such time as they can be disposed for private use. And Flipman changed it around 180 degrees to where the land went from disposition or disposal of the lands to retention, federal ownership, including into the argument everyone in the United States. So it comes headlong conflict with local governments as well as state governments. You know, I always like to try to explain it. It's like a planning commission situation. Ownership of lands is one thing, but how they're managed and how they're dealt with is something else. One of the things that you always get in conflict with is that government has a particular purpose and role. And if you believe in government as I do, that we live in a republic, then we live in a government where people elect you to make decisions at the best of your ability, and not government through committees and through demonstrations, etc., and public hearings and so forth. And so that got me in a lot of trouble. That's a quick. So.
You have to realize that basically all this Flipman was started and it was lobbied by the BLM, the federal land management that's in place to do all this. And they were the ones that lobbied it. Before this time, the BLM was staffed by just a very few people in each one of these districts. They managed the land, they helped the stockmen, they made water holes and fences and so forth in a very limited scale. And the land at that time was public land, as Jim indicated, and it was multiple use, which is good for everybody. And that's what we were very well accustomed to. What happens, they changed this thing around with Flipman when they lobbied and lobbied and lobbied to get this done. It took a long time for it to happen, but it's what you call job security. These people then become the kings of the federal land, and they had more to say about Grand County than anybody else did. Grand County, the county we live in, is about 3 or a little less than 3% private land. The rest is federal land. And these people are the lords, you know, the king. And this is bad, and this goes against my feelings. And it's not what we need today. We need to work with these people. We need to enjoy our lands, all of us do. It's not good to lock them up into large tracts of wilderness that does nothing. We need to all enjoy them, from the individual that's been crippled in war and so forth to come home. He needs to be able to go in and enjoy them. We need to protect them, but we need to use them right. And we're being so overly powered and influenced by the environmental movement to lock up large tracts of land to protect it for future. The future's today. We need to take care of it today as well, but we need to be able to use it, whether it's mining or grazing or tourist. It all works together, and it should be fine-tuned and so forth. And this is where we're at. You go back to about 1980, about the time Ronald Reagan come in, I was a county commissioner of Grand County at that time. This Flipma was taking effect and showing, flexing their muscle. They decided to set large tracts of wilderness aside. At this time, the guidelines was it had to be a wilderness designated area, had to be 5,000 acres of roadless area, 5,000 acres or more of roadless area. And we got to looking around, and about everything we had here had rules. This was done by mechanical instruments, graders and bulldozers and so forth. We then at this time, to express how we felt about it from a Grand County's viewpoint, we took one of our graders, we notified the BLM that we were going to go on to one of their proposed wilderness areas and grade one of the roads to emphasize that that was a road, and it has been there. And they threatened to bring in the federal marshal and lock up all the county commissioners and so forth because we were civil disobedient and so forth. We had at that time, that was the kickoff of the Sagebrush Rebellion, we had probably over 100 local people that went to that, the news media and so forth, and we made quite a symbolic deal out of it.
On the 4th of July.
Yeah, so it was quite an interesting thing. At this time, we introduced the Sagebrush Rebellion to the state of Utah, the state legislators. It was introduced through a committee, but it was chaired by Ivan Matheson out of Cedar City, Utah, Iron County, and they passed it. It went on into the full House, and the full House of Representatives, our legislators in state level, voted in favor of a Sagebrush Rebellion bill. I don't remember the number of it, but it was passed very strongly in the state of Utah and handed to the governor at that time to sign it into law, challenging the state that this should be done. These lands should be returned to the state. We believe that we come into this union on and should have equal footing with the 13 original states that come in, and that was own your own land. And but the governor, he kind of backed off from it. He's a Democratic individual, and he decided that it should be tested in court before he would sign it, and consequently it's never been tested. But the demand is much stronger today than it was at that time. We see the large tracts of land being designated, and the environmental movement very strongly trying to lock it up. And we're not going to be able to pay support systems like for the hospital and fire department, whatever it takes, on a tax level if we don't have the right to use these lands. So that's where a lot of our revenue comes from. You know, I guess that's...
You know, touched on the Sagebrush Rebellion. I think it started a little bit earlier than that. When FLTMA was passed in '76, shortly after that, we was having a lot of trouble dealing with the BLM because at that time we was pretty well into uranium boom around here, and that was a very dominant feature. And they come up with high costs on how you had to record claims, and you had to pay more money to get it done, and there was deadlines. You had to do certain things. Everything had to be registered through the BLM, when before all you had to do was register it at the courthouse. And there were a lot of miners, concerned miners and land users at the time, not knowing where they stood. You know, people like to obey the law, but when it gets to a point of ridiculous, then 180-degree turn overnight is just a little sudden. And they didn't make it overnight, they made it in 90 days. So everybody had to educate themselves on what to do. Anyway, Ray Tibbits, two other gentlemen, and myself met in the coffee shop here, discussing the issue. We decided what we needed to do to set up an organization. And that's when we set up Western Association of Land Users to include all users of lands in a coalition to try to bring these troubles to a head and so forth. So we went ahead and organized and set it up. Ray was the president. And at that time, he come up with an idea of big posters that showed all the activities on the land, whether it was drilling for oil, uranium, mining, recreationists or what, and then he put a circle and a cross. And the top of that poster was called the Endangered Species. It was a real good idea and real effective. Well, we started circulating them all over the country. John McDonald and myself delivered a bunch of those to Nevada. And although Nevada has got the credit for starting that sagebrush rebellion, I know it was those posters that opened their eyes up to get them motivated. And so that's when I think it started. And all the sagebrush rebellion amounted to was states' rights. People's rights to govern themselves. States created the federal government. The federal government didn't create the states. That's something that they want us to forget about, is you know, because then it makes their job easy. So the media never talks about things like that and so forth until Newt Gingrich comes into the scene here lately, and he's got a pretty good handle on what the Constitution is and means. But anyway, covered a lot of land there, but all it boils down to is your God-given rights. And your right to exercise those God-given rights and those talents. And we are endowed with certain rights. Among them life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Those are unalienable. That's your natural right. And then I think probably one of the most interesting studies in the West has been this environmental movement. Because no one is against destroying the environment. So that is a little catch-all phrase that has been created that they can play games with. Everyone wants to be a good environmentalist. But it's when it becomes more than the environment, when it becomes nothing more than controlling your life, is where they have trouble with guys like Ray Tibits and Jimmy Walker. We just won't cave into that nonsense. If they want to argue the values of things based on environmental problems and concerns, and that's fine. I don't have any problem with that. When they do that just to create a reason to pass laws to tell you how to live, that's another thing. There's a damn big difference. So,
You know, I think one thing that we should relate to very strongly here, I think that the 1872 mining law was enacted in 1872. Very important. That give everybody the ability to stake a mining claim and do these type of things. That's what helped win the West as much as anything. And it was one of the strongest bills that was passed at that time, and it's still very strong. That meant that if you lived in New York City or California or state of Utah or wherever, you had the right to come here and stake a mining claim. You know, but you had to have some kind of a resource there. You had to have gold or copper or uranium or whatever. And it allowed us to be able to use these lands. And I think this has come under the pressure and under the gun very strongly lately, because a lot of people think that was the rip-off of the West. And a lot of people, if you found a claim out here that had gold on it or it had uranium, and if it had significant amount of minerals, you could patent this. Go to patent. You normally have to hire an attorney, and he proves that it's valid. You show that you've come up with the necessary minerals. You patent this piece of property. This is about 20 acres is what it amounts to. By law, you can patent it and you can gain a deed to it, just like you would any piece of property right here in Moab. I hear throughout the West and a lot of the environmentalists saying, oh, they've ripped that off. I mean, they gained that piece of property for very little revenue. It didn't cost them anything, and then they've all of a sudden, maybe they had a claim like that outside of Las Vegas and it's worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. There's nothing wrong with that. Anybody can do it. If you're from New York or California, you've got those same rights to do. But what it does, it takes this land that needs to be taken out of these lockup type situations and put onto the public dole and start, people can pay taxes and so forth. People can use it. Instead of sitting here with less than 3% private land, you're getting more land in the system. People can come here now and they can buy land. They feel like that it's available to them and it isn't too costly, because supply and demand forces the price up. So it is good. The taxes paid on this automatically then goes into the coffers and it pays for services and so forth. But that miner, by the same token, if he has the resources there, he employs a large group of people. And he builds a job force. It's very important to everybody here. And these are the things and the machinery that takes to make this kind of thing work. And it's still a great law. And it's just as good today as it was when they've implemented it, just like the Constitution. The Constitution is just as good and just as important as the day it was written. I think people need to be a little bit more careful with that and protect that law just like the Constitution.
Yeah, there's been a big move lately in the last few years to change that law. See, one of the big problems, you have miners, and then you have miners, and then you have miners. And they use examples of these large mining companies that buy patented mining claim because by then, a lot of the values have been pretty well defined and they know exactly what they are, so you can put a dollar figure. So, you know, they for the life of the property runs out, and you might say gold, for instance, you know, that mining company is going to make millions and millions and millions. So environmental or the community's trying to make it look like they're ripping the government, the taxpayers off. When in reality they're not, because what they've done is put things in motion. It's activity that generates taxes. It's not lip service and stuff like that. So they really confuse the issue, but that law will be changed. It's unfortunate because what it does is removes the incentive for the little guy. Now, all of these laws and all of these rules, it doesn't matter if you got a $1 billion mining company or a $1,000 mining company, you got to do the same things. Now, taken for granted, they are trying to simplify it to a certain extent. If you have less than 25 claims, then you are not obligated to do some of these things. But it still removes the incentive for the little guy. And I think I probably resented that more than anything. And I want to tell you, since Flipna, there has been more arrogant, self-centered little individuals show up in these government positions that think they're God. They honestly think they own that land. And, you know, and they're the ones that supposedly enforce the law. Well, a lot of them are intelligent people. They know what they are and what their position is. But I'll tell you what, there's a lot of them that isn't. And they take advantage of their authority to harass the people.
They seem to be coming from a lot different direction than the people that have lived here all their life, you know. What's happening, here's another segment of the West. We've enjoyed, you know, as well as mining, the ranchers, the sheep herders, the sheepmen and so forth. And these are the people that really established the West in the beginning. One time right here in Grand County, there was a number of large cattle outfit out here, and all of them used the land along with a number of big sheep outfits that come in and use it during the winter time, and they used it in common with each other. Today we have very few cow outfits left, and this really poses a problem now. One of the reasons, because you don't have anybody using it. The old adage comes back, you either use it or you lose it. And when you don't graze that grass off, and like this cheatgrass that comes early in the spring, and the old stockmen, they'd keep their cows on the range for longer in the spring until they'd graze that down, keep the graze down until it quit growing. Then they took the cows and went to a higher mountain range. Today we don't have those kind of things, so the cheatgrass comes, it grows, it gets 10, 12 inches high, and becomes an inferno. It's like gasoline. If you drop, lightning hits it, or somebody drops a cigarette or a match, away it goes. We're burning up our country, and the biggest part of it could be solved by the use of stock on the range. Once again, the old adage is the stock people are using the range, and they're getting more out of it than they should, and doing it at the expense of the taxpayer, and the government's carrying the bill on it, and it's unfair. It's the same way with the mining claims. Anytime that or patented mining claim. Once they give a deed to that piece of property, the government still keeps the mineral rights to it. They don't pass that on anymore, you know. And the state the same way. So all they're really passing anymore is surface management. They're keeping the thing that really pays the tab. So I think these things have really got to be looked at, you know, and put the perspective back. This is still a great country, but the thing that made it great was the right for people to be able to use it on a good level. You know, the people that were come into this country and lived here, they were environmentalists before environmental things were popular. Now we're conservationists or preservationists, and it's a little hard to be called environmentalist anymore.
You know, another thing that all of this has led to that kind of brings into a position of affecting a lot of people, local people here now, and that is areas of archaeology and paleontology. Now, people that like to been out in the hills as much as we have, you know, you learn to be a rock hound. Believe me, around Moab, Utah, some of the most beautiful agates in the world. And they come because of certain geological things that happened in a particular formation called the Morrison Formation. And I could go on for hours on this subject, but to prove my point, some of the finest, most beautiful agates are in some of the dinosaur bones. This is one of the very few places in the whole world where the cells of the dinosaur bone are replaced with agate. Bright colors, bright design, beautiful. And so it's real attractive from a rock hound point of view. And they've been, just north of town right now, there's a place there that they've been picking up dinosaur bones ever since we was in high school. They went out there and helped University of Utah or somebody pipe the bones off that hill. But what years?
That was
16?
in, that was in the 40s.
Yeah, way back in the 40s, see. And now, all at once, that's very significant from a geological point of view, or time point of view, because it changes when certain dinosaurs became strong. That's where the Utah raptor was first found. And that's all significant. I'm in favor of trying to do something with that, because the most significant part of it is that it's one of the very few areas in the whole world where early Cretaceous dinosaur fossils are found. And that's one of the best places. In fact, they've had a hard time identifying where the Jurassic and the Cretaceous starts, because just looking at it from a formation point of view, it's confusing. But they've made enough tests now to know that that is the boundary. And so there's a lot of good dinosaur bones. But then you twist that around a little bit further, and what I call academic greed. All at once, the only ones that can think dinosaurs, think pretty rocks, and think everything is colleges. So they've got to be the ones to excavate or do whatever on these particular, or on any find. And that's always bothered me, because I think everyone should have a right. You know, just because you got a lot of money and you go to college and you get a piece of paper that tells you how smart it is, you know, that doesn't give you the God-given right to hell with everybody else, in my opinion. And I think and I don't remember that they've ever tried to work out a place where the hobbyist could even be a part of this. And I've got some real good ideas and solutions on how some of that could be brought into a solution that includes everybody. But just this idea that sciences have got to have and contain all the knowledge. And what they've done is scared the little guy, the little prospector that's found all that stuff. They won't even tell him anymore. The hell with him. You know.
It's Lynn Ottinger.
Yeah, I don't know.
Perfect example.
Right.
Perfect example. And of course, I could say something there, but I won't.
Oh, please do. Please do. I've probably heard it already.
No, but it's just another one of those land use issues that certain people have certain likes. And the name of the game is try to figure out how to appreciate each other's likes and get off my back. You know, let me live a life that's not so complicated that I got to go get a college degree before I know what's legal and what isn't. I'll tell you what you do. You go over there at the BLM office and ask them for what you can do when it comes to digging dinosaur bones or paleontology or fossils or anything like that. And they'll tell you, you can't do anything. And they say, okay, show me the bills, show me the literature, show me something in black and white, and I'll bet you won't get it.
They do
Now,
this.
how come that a multi-million-dollar agency that's managing lands can't flip them documents to where you've got a history? When I was in my early 20s, I was a scoutmaster. I worked with Bates Wilson, who was head of the Arches National Monument at the time, and was trying to develop Canyonlands National Park. We took a bunch of scouts down there, explorer scouts. One of his boys was an explorer scout, and I had a cousin that was an explorer scout at the time. We went down and spent a week or 10 days down in the Needles exploring, trying to come up with information that would help define that as a real unique, unusual place of park status. So a lot of Indian ruins and artifacts and stuff like that. And so we was told at the time, you know, that anything on the surface you could take, but you couldn't dig. And that was the rule of thumb at the time. So you can pick up arrowheads, you can pick up a pot, or you can do whatever as long as it's sitting out on the surface. Well, that's what we was telling the explorer scouts. See, they was raised with that thought in mind, which is fine. And then later on, when it became apparent that when they got studying the Anasazi history of, that, you know, it's been going on a long time, and then all at once they invented the word looting. Now, looting is a word that they put on somebody making a buck out of something. It's related to archaeology. And then they started looking